good as always. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome back for another ASMR fact video. And because a few days ago we discussed about Antarctica, now it's time to talk about the other pole, the North Pole ice cap, and discover some very interesting highlights and facts. Well, the North Pole Cap, is also known as the Arctic Ice Cap. Arctic Ice Cap. And it's a region of frozen seawater located in the northernmost part of the Earth. Northernmost part of the Earth. And the ice cap is composed of sea ice, which is frozen seawater, rather than land-based ice like glaciers or ice sheets. It's experiencing significant seasonal variation. You may see here the North Pole Cap during the summer, which is restrained narrow, and a North Pole Cap during the winter, which is expands in a very large area, more than a continent. Good. Now, with ice coverage is reaching its maximum extent during the winter and shrinking during the summer, the extent of the ice cap varies through the year due to the seasonal change. The ice cover is typically at minimum in September, while in March it reached the maximum. Over the past few decades, there has been some decline in the extent and thickness Arctic sea ice. And this is attributed to the climate change. Well, in fact, in comparison with Antarctica, which is a continent, a land-based continent, the North Pole ice cap, it's not, or the generic name North Pole, like we say, popular. Instead, it's a huge ice cap that is floating on the Arctic Ocean. Alright. So, there are also some impacts because the reduction of the ice coverage has led to increased interest in Arctic shipping routes, as melting ice opens the possibility of shorter shipping paths between Europe and Asia. Well, we may find here, for example, in these two pictures, between the comparison between summer and winter, that in the summer, because the ice cap is somehow narrow, these blue regions, which is also the Arctic Ocean, it's open to the possibility of trading and new shipping routes. And this will shorter the shipping, the travel time for the ships between, for example, from Alaska or Canada to Russia and China. Good. But during the winter, the situation is opposite. Right. The Arctic region, including the North Pole ice cap, is also, like Antarctica, a focus of scientific research. scientific research to better understand the climate change, ice dynamics, and impacts on ecosystems. So this is research, which is scientific. Scientific research, yeah. The Arctic region, it's governed by the Arctic Council. Arctic Council, an intergovernmental forum composed of 8 Arctic nations working together to address the common challenges, including the environmental protection. How about, because this is the ice cap, how about its thickness? Well, while the ice cap is primarily composed of sea ice, there are areas where the ice can get quite thick, because of multi-year ice which survives more than one melting season. This can reach several meters in thickness, or dozen meters. What is this ice cap impact on global sea level? Well, actually, the melting of Arctic ice does not contribute to rise in the sea level, since the ice is already in the water. However, the loss of the reflective ice cover contributes to overall warming, which can impact the stability of the land-based ice and in turn affect the sea level. So, good. In this map here, we can see the entire Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean here. And the polar ice cap, which it covers almost entirely. We have here with gray, we have the land mass, because Greenland, even if it's mostly covered in ice, it's a land mass. But with white, it's the polar cap ice, which cover the entire, almost entire Arctic Ocean. Right. So we have here the Greenland, and here it's the extreme North Pole, let's say, where it's considered the North Pole. Right, we have the Siberian Iceland, Wrangel Island, and the Svalbard, Nova Similia. But I think this one is a graphical made for the winter season, because like I mentioned before in the beginning, during the summers the ice will be like more restrained, narrower, like in this size, the ice cap. Now, these were some, let's say, very known facts, but let's switch to the second part of this video, which is the less known or incredible facts. Yes, North Pole, like Antarctica, has some lesser known facts. One of them is the underwater mountains. Underwater mountains. Beneath the Arctic ice, there are underwater mountain range. These features play a role in shaping the Arctic Ocean influence the ocean currents. Well, very interesting. I didn't know this fact. Methane seeps. Methane seeps. Methane seeps. Well, there are methane seeps in the Arctic oceans. Methane, a potent greenhouse gas, can be released from the seafloor. The extent and impact of these seeps on the climate are still on research. The Arctic plateau, like we say, it's home to a unique ecosystem that is adapted to extreme cold conditions. Well, in comparison with Antarctica or the South Pole, where it's a landmass that has also mountains, the North Pole ice cap it's completely flat because it's only ice floating on the Arctic Ocean. Right. And some species of living creatures develop specialized adaptation to survive in this harsh Arctic environment. One of them is the polar bear polar bear or the polar fox or different kind of fishes that are living in extreme cold water temperature. Another fact is the ice nucleation. Arctic ice can form around particles in the air, a process known as ice nucleation. Dust, pollen, and other particles can serve as nuclei for ice crystals. Ice crystals, influencing the characteristic of the ice. Yeah. Historical exploration. The North Pole has been subject of numerous historical exploration. The first verified expedition to reach the North Pole was led by Robert Peary in 1901. Robert Peary in 1909. 1909. Another fact is the shift of the magnetic poles or magnetic north. The magnetic north pole it's not fixed, but it's also constantly move. And in recent years, the rate of movement has increased, leading to adjustments in the navigation systems. How about another fact about the permafrost? Permafrost features. The permafrost under the Arctic tundra contains a unique feature like ice wedges and pingos. Ice wedges are polygonal patterns formed in the ground, and pingos are ice-covered mounds. Well, there is life there because indigenous communities, particularly the Inuit people, possess valuable traditional knowledge about the Arctic environment. Their observation contribute to a holistic understanding of the region. Inuit people. Well, Arctic haze. Arctic During certain times of the year, the Arctic experiences a phenomenon known as Arctic haze. This haze is caused by a combination of pollutants, and natural particles in the air. Well, what about the icebergs? Icebergs. Icebergs. The movement of the ice in the Arctic Ocean, can leave distinctive marks on the seafloor. These iceberg scars provide insights into the dynamics of the ice. Movement can be studied and understand the historical ice movements. Well, these were the less known facts, and now let's switch to chapter 3, or the expeditions. Yes, like Antarctica, the North Pole have long and storied history, with explorers and researchers venturing into the Arctic study to research and discover its unique environment. And we're gonna start first with Robert Peary in 1909, where Robert Peary was an American explorer. It's credited with leading the first expedition to reach the North Pole. An expedition took place in 1909, and Peary claimed to have reached the North Pole on the 6th of April the same year. Another one is Roald Amundsen and Umberto Nobile in 1926. The Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen and Italian aeronautical engineer Umberto Nobile, along with their airship, the Norge, completed the first verified expedition to the North Pole in 1926. The Norge flew over the pole of Spitzenberg to Alaska. The USS Nautilus submarine. USS Nautilus. Well, this was, I think, the first nuclear-powered submarine. Became the first vessel to reach the North Pole underwater in 1958. This expedition demonstrated the ability of submarines to operate under the Arctic ice cap. Right. The next one are the Soviet North Pole drifting stations. Well, the Soviet Union established a series of drifting ice stations in the Arctic Ocean, starting in the late 1930s. These stations, such as North Pole 1 and North Pole 9, played a crucial role in Arctic research. And the last one expedition were to be mentioned is the Arctic Ocean 2022. In the modern area, various scientific expeditions continue to study the Arctic environment. The Mosaic multidisciplinary drifting observatory for study of Arctic climate. It was an expedition in 2019 launched, aimed to freeze a research vessel into the Arctic ice to study the region for an entire year. Research institutions, icebreakers, ships, and scientific organizations regularly conduct expeditions in the Arctic to study the climate change. Climate change. Ice dynamics and marine life, and other aspects of the North Pole area. And these expeditions often involve collaboration between multiple countries. Well, like in Antarctica, expeditions in the North Pole remain challenging due to the harsh conditions and shifting ice. Advances in technologies, including the icebreakers, submarines, and research stations, have facilitated ongoing explorations and more data from the North Pole area. Good. So, and now a very good question. If we can compare, like I said, the North Pole with the South Pole or Antarctica, in terms of temperatures, Antarctica is colder than the North Pole. For example, the North Pole, the average temperature is -30, between -30 and -40 degrees, while in Antarctica it reaches an average below -50. Good. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.